Welcome to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. If you're listening on Spotify, you can support the podcast through listener support. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/Animal Stories for Kids. And now, it's time for our story. Once upon a time, there was an Azawakh named Geneba. Geneba the Azawakh lived in a vast savanna with a group of people in a village. Geneba was a lively pup who loved to run across the open plains while she felt the wind blowing past her nose and ears. She loved running around right after she woke up when it was cool in the morning, and she loved running in the middle of the day, even though it was really hot. Geneba the Azawakh was a fast runner, so if she was hot, she would just have to run around for a few minutes and she would cool down. Although she would be using her energy and get a little hot, running was one way for her to stay cool in the hot savanna. But one thing she really loved to do other than run was to dig holes. Every morning, after Geneba ate some breakfast that the people she lived with gave her, she would go out and run, and when it got hot, she would run again. But if it was really, really hot, Geneba the Azawakh would find a bush or a tree and start digging a hole right next to it. She would dig and dig with her tail wagging with excitement. Geneba would just use her paws to dig into the soft earth. "It's so hot," Geneba the Azawakh would say on a hot day like this. "And this bush is a good shade, but I'm gonna dig a hole next to this bush to get some more shade and feel the nice cool dirt underneath." And with her powerful legs, she would not only dig a deep enough hole to hide underneath for shade, but the hole was wide and pretty big. Big enough to fit other animals, but Geneba dug it nice and big just for herself. And there she would be, nestled in the earth in a big hole surrounded by mounds of fresh dug dirt. It was cooler underneath the dry, hard ground, and the bush was now higher and made the shade even better for her to relax from the sun. The people she lived with in her village didn't quite like that Geneba was digging holes because she would dig holes around the gardens too, and it would make it harder for the people of the village to plant sometimes. So Geneba had to find other places sometimes to dig holes for fun. Geneba the Azawakh loved to run, and she loved to dig holes. One hot day, Geneba was in the middle of digging a big and wide hole next to a tall tree. And as Geneba the Azawakh was digging, she heard something nearby. So she stopped digging and looked around. She then saw a small family of desert hedgehogs popping out from their burrow, twitching their tiny noses. "Oh, hi there," said Geneba the Azawakh with her tail wagging fast. The family of desert hedgehogs were startled, and they were a bit shocked to see an Azawakh. And so they blinked in surprise and they scurried back into their burrow. But Geneba was not only a great runner and a great hole digger, she was very curious and wanted to see where the desert hedgehogs went. So she ran to the desert hedgehogs and looked down into their burrow and started to look around for them. Geneba the Azawakh barked and jumped into the desert hedgehog's burrow and started digging in the hole, making it bigger, following them into their burrow. And as she was digging, the burrow kept going down and down. Thought Geneba the Azawakh to herself. Desert hedgehogs don't usually dig so deep for their burrows. I wonder if they're just using another animal's abandoned burrow. Geneba kept digging, and she finally came to a spot where the burrow opened up and a whole underground world opened up to her. She'd never seen a place like this before. It was dark, and only the fading lights from all the burrow entrances around were giving the underground world a dim light to be able to see. It was a busy world full of desert hedgehogs, moving here and there. They were just enjoying their day underground away from the hot sun. Geneba watched in wonder how the desert hedgehogs would live and take care of each other underground. But she couldn't help herself. Her instincts were telling her to try and catch one of the desert hedgehogs. So, she started to chase the desert hedgehogs underground. And all the desert hedgehogs started running. "I'm gonna get one of you desert hedgehogs," said Jennifer to the desert hedgehogs. "You can't catch us," said one of the desert hedgehogs. Although Jennifer the Azawakh was chasing the desert hedgehogs and trying to catch them, she was actually having fun. And, believe it or not, the desert hedgehogs were having fun too, being chased. They were all enjoying the chase and they were having fun with Jennifer as she came so close to catching them but couldn't because they were a little faster and they were smaller than Jennifer the Azawakh. And they were in their own burrow, so they knew their underground home very well. And as Jennifer was chasing the desert hedgehogs and the desert hedgehogs were having fun running away, they all suddenly stopped running. The ground started to shake a little, and they all looked around. "What was that?" asked Jennifer. One of the desert hedgehogs said, "The burrow, it's collapsing." Jennifer and the desert hedgehogs were having too much fun, and all that running and chasing made the burrow underground start to fall apart, and the tunnels were starting to cave in. Jennifer started digging upwards as fast as she could, while all the dirt was falling all over her face and making it hard for her to keep her eyes open. But she kept digging and digging up out of the burrow, while all the desert hedgehogs were running around and wondering how they could get out. Then finally, Jennifer the Azawakh dug up out of the ground, and she saw the light peek through the dirt, and she climbed up and jumped out of the big hole. And all the other desert hedgehogs ran out of the burrow right on time. And then the whole patch of earth crumbled underneath them as they all crawled out of the underground world. And as it all collapsed from all that running and chasing underground, Jennifer saw that one last baby desert hedgehog was stuck in the ground. And so she jumped up towards the baby desert hedgehog and grabbed it with her mouth and pulled it out of the dirt. And the baby desert hedgehog went to its family safe and sound. Jennifer the Azawakh looked around and saw that all the desert hedgehogs were so happy that they were all safe and that the baby desert hedgehog was safe too. And they all thanked Jennifer. And one of the desert hedgehogs said to her, maybe next time when we're underground, let's not chase each other. I think there's definitely a place and time for running around and chasing and having fun. And underground isn't it?" Jennifer smiled and agreed. She was happy that all the desert hedgehogs were safe, but also she had a great time running around and digging holes. And she was happy that her digging actually came in handy and saved the day, even though it was her digging and running around that caused the problem in the first place. And Jennifer realized that while running and digging was a lot of fun, there was a time and place for everything. Underground tunnels were meant for shelter and safety, not for playful chases. And Jennifer went to a different area of the savannah and started digging a deep hole. And then she stopped, and she said to the desert hedgehogs, "Hey, you little critters, I feel bad for ruining your burrow, so here you go. I started a burrow for you. This hole should be deep enough for you to start a new underground world for yourselves." The desert hedgehogs all thanked her, and they started digging into their new home. And as she watched the desert hedgehogs scurry into their new home, she felt really good about herself. And from that day forward, Jennifer was more careful about where she dug her holes. She still loved to dig holes, but now she made sure to choose her digging spots wisely, and she made sure to stay away from areas where more accidents could happen. And the Azawakh lived happily ever after. The end. The Azawakh is a sighthound breed of dog from West Africa and are native to the Sahara Desert in the area of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, and the name Azawakh comes from the Azawakh Valley. The Azawakh is commonly associated with the Tuareg people, who are a nomadic group of people that live in the Sahara. The Azawakh is an ancient breed of sighthound and were primarily bred to be guard dogs and to hunt gazelle and other animals. The Azawakh is a slim and elegant-looking dog. They don't have much fat on their body, and you can see their bone structure and muscles through their skin. Some think that they're starving, but this is actually how they look. They have almond-shaped eyes, and they have a very short coat. The Azawakh can come in many different colors, such as red, gray, blue, brown, black, and white. The Azawakh has a slender build, long legs, and a graceful movement. The Azawakh can range from 25 to 29 inches tall, and they can weigh from 33 to 55 pounds. The Azawakh can live from 12 to 15 years. Azawaks are sometimes compared to cats because of their independent nature and their shyness around strangers. The Azawakh is known to be very aloof and very distant and disconnected from others that they're not familiar with. The Azawakh develops a deep connection to their owners, and they tend to be very reserved when it comes to strangers. They are deeply affectionate, protective, and loyal. Azawaks are not as obedient as other breeds and can require a lot of patience and bonding and training to become comfortable with an owner and a family. The Azawakh is known to be a very sensitive dog, both physically and emotionally. They can respond negatively from any harsh treatment or training, and gentle guidance and positive reinforcement is best for the Azawakh to learn to live with its owners. Unlike other sighthounds, the Azawakh hunt in packs, and they communicate to each other with barks when they sense danger. The Azawakh has very high energy and endurance. The Azawakh does not like water and will avoid rain and cold weather. The Azawakh has great memory and can recognize each other after a long period of being separated. The Azawakh can reach up to 40 miles per hour when it runs at full speed. The Azawakh has a strong prey drive and has a natural instinct to chase and capture small animals. The Azawakh is very vocal and can communicate their feelings and their needs through a wide range of sounds, like barking, whining, howling, and other audible ways of expressing themselves. Azawaks have so much energy, they require a lot of exercise and open area to run in and keep up with mental stimulation. Azawaks are more closely related to Slugis, or Arabian Greyhounds, than they are to the Saluki, which is another breed of sighthounds that originated in the Arabian Peninsula. Azawaks are known for digging holes to keep them occupied when they're bored, and they're known to dig random holes in gardens. This behavior is known to be an inherited reaction to the hot weather, and digging holes next to trees or bushes allow Azawaks to cool down from the sun and to take a break on top of cool dirt that's freshly dug up, and it's good exercise for them. Have you seen a real-life Azawakh before? If you have, where did you see it? If you want to write to us, ask your parent to email us at animalstoriesforkids@gmail.com and tell us what you think of our stories. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. If you're listening on Spotify, you can support the podcast through listener support. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/animalstoriesforkids. Until next time, bye!